It's still real to me, damn it. I mean,
Hey everybody, and it's still real to us. Welcome to the season premiere of It's Still Real to Me here on RiverCity-Media. Howie, Chaney along with QB1 Randall Cunningham, and we're missing our sidekick, Double J Jeremy Johnson. Hopefully he'll join us here shortly. Randy, it's been a while, man.
Hey, J-E, double R-M-E-Y. Hey, it has been. We'd be remiss, and I wish Jeremy was here to talk about this, if we didn't just stop the wrestling show and say congratulations to all the signees that we've all had the privilege to cover over the years. A lot of kids signing scholarships today. A lot of kids we know getting opportunities, and not the least of those from Jeremy's Fight Red Devils. Mr. Logan Anderson signed his LOI with the Clemson Tigers today.
Yeah,
Big deal.
absolutely.
Five at the Clemson. That's a big deal for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big signing today. All of his family was there, and a lot of people was there, all dressed out in the Clemson orange and purple, and congratulations to him. And like I said, congratulations to everybody else that signed. I know there's a lot from the Chattanooga area that you know that has signed as well. And hopefully, after all this kind of settles down, maybe we can do a small show about that. All the signees that
Yeah.
we know of, and kind of like we was talking about before we went on the air. It's a new day with the NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff. So it's not as easy to sign as it used to be and to get scholarships as it used to be because each school does not know what they're going to be able to allow.
I'm telling you. And you know, you not only got to manage who you sign, you have to manage your NIL dollars. You got to manage. These coaches, we all sit here and go, I don't like the NIL. I don't like college playoffs. I don't like this. I didn't like that Tennessee was a ninth seed and possibly ends up at Ohio State. But what they manage nowadays compared to what Bear Bryant or Johnny Majors had to manage back in the 70s and 80s, whole different world. Uh, we'll jump into the wrestling, but it hit me today. We covered Logan's dad, and we've had Logan right here on River City Media. Does that make me a granddad announcer or what?
Yeah, it makes you and Phil grandpas now
Yeah. It also makes me
because,
have to go back here. Thanks, Logan.
yeah, absolutely. It's crazy seeing a lot of these kids. I went to school with Chad, and he, he was a great athlete in his own. And now his son is signed to play at Clemson, and congratulations to him. And it's kind of like we've talked about with Coach Benefield in the past. It don't matter where you're playing ball at. If you're good enough to be recognized, they're going to find you.
I'm going to tell you right now, they might have signed the wrong Anderson. Because if you saw that film of Tate running the ball, he might be the one with the true talent of the in the family.
Yeah, let's give him a little bit more time. Give him a couple more years where he can join as well. But you're right about that. And congratulations to everybody. But uh, I know it's hard to believe, but enough about football. Let's move on over to the wrestling world a little bit. Hopefully, Jeremy will join us shortly, but we're just going to do, a quick thing. What you got, Randy?
We're lagging a little bit, but I'm in a storm from the main base. So everybody, if you see us, our buddy the Rabbit Beaver told us we were kind of hanging up every minute or two. It just is the way it's going to be because right now I'm in an EPB kind of they're doing some service in our neighborhood. So my 1 gig is probably about 1 micro gig now. So bear with us if it gets a little bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stuff will be straightened out here in coming weeks and all that. But we're here to talk about some wrestling. We're going to talk about a little bit of stuff in the past. Try to get caught up with some stuff. Like everybody knows that Randy and Jeremy and myself, Randy and Jeremy broadcast football games, high school football games. I go to the high school football games. My daughter's in the band, so we've been a little bit busy over the last 3 months, and so we're a little bit behind, but we're looking forward to getting caught back up and get started and getting a full swing going on.
Hey, I also want to open the doors to, we had our boy Joseph D. Hughes, or better known as the Rabbit Bieber, on last week. We also we've had Cabana Man Dan on in the last couple of weeks. Got a show. I still ain't got a date on it, but I talk to him regularly. Got a show booked with Justin Race coming up today. Young, up and coming talent. Been texting back and forth through Mr. Hughes there with Evan Golden, the Golden Child from the Knoxville area. Howie, I know we've not seen him in person. I've watched him. I think that's a future. That's a future superstar. I really think he can end up places. I know he's already doing some NWA work, but I could see him in the AEW someday. Or, he's just. I told him in an email I sent him today. He is Buddy Landell in my head. Also, we're going to be doing a little bit of something with Forever Pro. They are running a contest. It's kind of a little bit like Tough Enough in the WWE. Me and you're going to get together and shoot a promo for them. But let me put it this way. If you want to be a pro wrestler, if you are a pro wrestler, if your dream is to climb in between the ropes, make a 45 seconds, send it to our buddy Rocky Shaw at Forever Pro, and they have a contest going to find the next big thing in Georgia wrestling. Howie, I can tell you, we'll have Rocky on in a few weeks. Looks like they're going to be opening some training facilities connected with Forever Pro, but we'll get it together and we'll get Rocky on one night.
Yeah, good deal. Let's see what Mr. Johnson said. Mr. Johnson sent me a text, said, "I'm sorry, guys." So I don't know what that means. So,
hey, Joseph Hughes' best line ever here. Evan Golden is the Temu Bret Hart.
good
Well,
deal. Yeah.
we all know that Mr. Johnson works for a large beverage supplier, aka Coca-Cola, or I was trying to say that without giving it away. So he has to end up working some crazy hours. So he might got called in or something. But we'll have Jeremy back. Jeremy's still part of the cast. We'll have him next show. Sorry he can't be here with us tonight. But Howie Chaney, I brought a list of old-time matches, and it's wrote on the back of my water bill. So I spent a lot of time on
that. Yeah, absolutely. You're talking about matches that has been missed in the past or that's taken place in the past, and you like to see again. And
I even went a little step farther. I think there's matches that would and appeal to an audience in 2024. I don't know that everything is. I don't know you could bring every match back and it still appeal to the crowd, but I think some of these would be real barn burners to see in AEW or NWA or, hey, MLW.
Yeah, it's one of those things where things change. As it goes along, things change. Like the evolution of football, it's a lot different now than it was just 20 years ago. Same with basketball.
Except for Paul.
Yeah, well, Paul Benefield's got 4 plays, but he's got a play sheet that's a mile long, but he's only got 4 plays.
Even the alligators survived the era of the dinosaurs, so we got Coach Paul Benefield.
So, but everything changes, and it's one of those things where if you brought people back from 40 years ago to watch today's wrestling, they'd be wondering what is this? But then again, if you bring young people in today's age and carry them back 40 years to watch that wrestling, they would be bored. They'd be like, "What's going on? Why are they just got them in a headlock? Why don't they jump off the top rope or something like that?" So it's a mixture of both that goes on both ways.
Me and my buddy Brain Dead Kevin Ryan kind of have this argument. I'm a true believer in protecting your finisher. Uh, and and he's from another generation where he believes in the false finish. So both of them's right, and I enjoy both of them. But to me, when Jake Roberts dropped the DDT on you, the match needed to be done. I didn't want to. Right now, you can see 27 DDTs and 28 kickouts. So it's a different era, and I think there's a lot of matches from that older era that could be done in a setting in 2024 and still be good.
Yeah, absolutely. You take if somebody watches an old match and sees a body slam and somebody sitting there or laying there selling it, they're going to be wondering in today, like, hey, why ain't he up already? Why is it taking him so long to get up? Where in today's age, you can do a Hurricane Rana and they're right back up, and 5 seconds later doing something else. So everything's a little bit different than it used to be.
Yes, and I'll go back to Georgia Championship Wrestling back in the 70s, watching Stan Hansen deliver the first finisher I could really move. And I'm sure there were finishers before that, but I remember Stan Hansen taking a clothesline and calling it a lariat, throwing it left-handed, and it being the best finisher in Georgia. The Iron Claw. Even somewhat the figure four, which is everybody's favorite legendary hold, it's became kind of a transition hold now that was a finisher at one point. So
yeah,
it's all the same. And I go back to this weekend, and we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this. The Survivor Series, that was born out of the Great American Bash, out of the mind of Dusty Rhodes. It stands the time. I mean, it stands the test of time. If you watched the War Games this weekend, and I said the Survivor Series, but if you watch the War Games, it's as good now. Maybe the characters is not as good as the Horsemen versus Dusty Rhodes and Sting and the Road Warriors, but no, I believe that was Magnum actually. But it's still great. Hey, the bionic elbow. I always loved bionic elbow. So,
yeah, absolutely. Like one of the finishes you was talking about. You knew when Randy Savage got up on that top rope and delivered the elbow, it was over. There's no kicking out. And
and it was an homage to the first War Games I ever seen, where the whole 5-man team put their finishers on Solo Sikoa at the end, and it took me back to when you seen a double clothesline and a bionic elbow, and then maybe a belly to belly to finish that War Games. I got to see the great Arn Anderson talk about those War Games over that summer, the Great American Bash. I think it was '85, and Arn said him and Dusty started 44 matches out of 44, and the Horsemen run 44 toss or corn flips out of 44. And they were 0-44 for the whole tour. So, that match. And, I think quietly Arn Anderson was always the hero of that match. He always started with Dusty. He always finished the match at some point. But Dusty Rhodes, Arn Anderson, the first 5 minutes of that, pure, don't get no better than that.
you said something that made me think of something else. Here we are. You talking about the War Games is still as good today as it was back when it first started 30 years ago. Do you think a table, ladders, and chairs match would go fly over real well 30 years ago?
No, well, it did. They just didn't call it tables, ladders, and chairs. Tables, ladders, and chairs, to me, was born out of Falls Count Anywhere, and I think the Dudleys and the Hardys, Edge and Christian, this thing kind of grew out of it, and they each, the Dudleys had the tables, the Hardys had the ladders, and they just kind of put everything together, and it was unique. It was unique for the time, but I don't think it's very indifferent to, like no DQ, fall count anywhere. And I don't think TLC ever captured the my love for Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels in a ladder match.
Right.
No one explored what all you could do with a match more than they did.
It's I'm sitting here thinking again, what about Hell in the Cell? It's kind of like a war games to a certain extent, but do you think it would be good in the past?
Well, as we get into this, I'm going to talk about this. I feel like the WWE just has took the cage match and made 50 different forms of it. The Punjabi death match, Hell in a Cell. Hell in a Cell was unique in the beginning because you had a top to that cage, but then over time, it's all kind of became a steel cage match. That was different forms, and AEW has tried to reinvent or rebook that Hell in a Cell, and it just isn't the same to me. So no, I'm with you.
Sitting here thinking about it, war games to a certain extent is kind of like a different version of what the WWE calls a elimination chamber.
Yeah, that's what I had on this list, a separate list when I was at work. I had wrote out that were nothing but different forms of the cage match. You've got Hell in the Cell, Elimination Chamber. You've got the straight up cage match. You've got what's the one? Is that the one they put them in pods inside the chamber?
So yeah,
The Cell.
that's the elimination chamber.
Yeah. To me, it's all a cage match. I think we've just got different forms of cage match, and I think AEW has tried to do that with some hardcore stuff, like floating barbed wire stuff from New Japan and stuff. So, but I've got a lot. I think I narrowed this list down that are just wrestlers, just things that we really don't see anymore, like barbed wire matches, razor matches. So,
yeah. The back in the day, the one that I'm thinking about back in the day, which we did see one kind of recently, is the dog collar match.
yes, the dog collar match is on my list. Hey, why don't I just stop at the top of the list and let's just cover each one of them a little bit.
Go ahead.
My personal, well, I don't want to start with this one because it's my personal favorite, and I'll probably stay on it a while. But the one I think that was unique to TNA, but it's very similar. They had its own set of rules, but it was Abyss's especially Monster Ball, where they locked you into a cage or locked you in a room, supposedly for 24 hours, and then released you into this hardcore match. But TNA now, they marketed it as kind of different, and actually it was a little bit different. Did you ever see a Monster Ball with Abyss, Mr. Chaney?
I did not. Unfortunately, I did not.
I just really thought it was good in the day.
I watched a lot of TNA back in the day, but that is one of them that it skipped me for some reason. I don't know why I didn't get to see it, but anyway.
Monster Ball was kind of early on in TNA, and by the time it got to TV, it was kind of watered down a little bit. But it was the Abyss. It was, and Joe just said it, his favorite match. And hey, Abyss and Monster Ball was something special. Let me run this one by you, Mr. Chaney. On a pole, brass nuts on a pole. Kevin Sullivan used to have a version of this he'd run in Florida where he'd put gilt on each. but it used to be what I first saw it as is a coal miner glove on a pole. First one to get to the coal miner's glove could use it in a match. But you had to climb a 10-foot pole in the middle of the match to get there. You ever have any recollection of that one?
Yeah, but not that form of it. I remember the contract on a pole, or
Yes, yes,
what was it? The Singapore cane
yes.
hanging from the pole, and all that.
Miz famously had that contract on a pole match in the WWE after he got fired.
Yeah, I remember that. And I wish somebody would go back and look at some of these things, and you would think the historian that Tony Khan is, that he would come up with some of these others. Would come back with some of these, but uh, you talking about these, it just brings back a lot of memories of the way things used to be, as far as them climbing up the pole, trying to slide up the pole and get up there and get whatever they was after, and but go ahead.
Our buddy, old Michael St. John, would remember this. Memphis ran on it for years. Hair versus hair match. And how many heads did Jerry Lawler shave in the day? And most famously, Austin Idol and Tommy Rich and Paulie Dangerously shaved Jerry Lawler's hair. I remember watching that TV the week after they were supposedly shaved Jerry Lawler's hair. That man had $100 haircut. It was just short. They didn't shave him, but I saw some of them where they actually shaved people bald. Jimmy Valiant uh, actually got shaved bald in his feud, and he had the long blonde hair, and I mean he was shaved completely bald. Uh, Big part of Mexican wrestling too.
Yeah, it'd be hard to do one of those today because majority of the wrestlers are bald headed anyway. They would
But
flip it around. They would flip around and say, if you lose the match, you have to grow your hair out.
that's true. That's true. But I love the old hair versus hair. One story I remember watching Memphis wrestling. Bill Dundee lost his hair and then put up his wife's hair. And he still tells that story. So hair versus hair. But along that vein is one we hear our buddy JC talk about a lot. How you gonna miss me unless I leave? Loser leave town.
Yeah. Yeah, but the problem with that is they run different places all the time, so you have to leave town anyway. But
Yeah.
I understand your premise and everything, and there's some way that they could come up with something to where that could be back relevant again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, here's one, Howie. I don't want to do all the talking, so I keep going to you.
No, that's fine.
Today, you would have a six-man card, and you'd have maybe two tag teams that would put on two matches. First, and this is another Jim Cornette used to talk about it when they were out in US WCCW with the Von Erichs. Maybe you had Kevin and One Man Gang at the top of it. Well, the rest of the card would be a captain's match between Dennis Condrey and maybe Tommy Rogers for who gets the advantage in the next match, which was a match between the Fantastics and the Midnight Express. So you could get a whole card with six guys in three different matches, or maybe it was you could get even different, and then maybe you could come back with a 6 or 8 man battle royal on that same card, which is another one that went away.
Yeah. That's kind of like the Survivor Series type deal, as far as what they did for the war games. As far as they had one person from each team go in and wrestle to see who got the one man advantage.
Yes, yes, and a lot of these captains matches back in the day were the winning team. Maybe if the Fantastics won, Jim Cornette was barred from ringside. if Dennis Condrey won, Jim Cornette wasn't allowed out with the Midnight Express. And I remember listening to a show, his podcast, and Cornette was talking about whether you got paid twice, and he was like, "No, you barely got paid once." So, captain's match.
That kind of brings back the. I know it's completely off the subject, but them talking about the three faces of Foley when he entered into the. I think it was a Royal Rumble as all three of them, and there's that wondering if he got paid 3 different times or not.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Just blow through a couple of these. We've already kind of talked about. The most brutal match I think ever was, I remember watching that Starrcade with Piper and Greg Valentine, the dog collar match. And there's different forms of that. You think about the dog collar match, then you had the Indian strap match, then you had the cowbell match. It was so famous that Dusty Rhodes would tie his cowbell in the middle of the ring. But there was a lot of different forms of that dog collar match. But I always thought the visual of the dog collar on each one of them was the best.
Yeah, and what is the bull rope match? I think that's one of them.
Yep.
Yeah, where they was strapped to the wrist.
Yeah, and then there was one of the best matches I've ever seen live was Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes in a bull rope match. So
yeah, that had to be a good one to see. Was that like at a house show?
Yes.
Was it?
Yeah, in Rome, Georgia, or somewhere random like that.
Oh wow!
Thursday night, it was in my little run where I was working some security for WCW, and I looked at the card and it said Dusty Rhodes versus Dick Murdoch and bull rope, and I went, well, I'm going to be out there for that one. So, and I remember sneaking out and watching it. Here's one, Howie, and I really miss this. And I'll call this really wasn't a match as much as it was babyface versus babyface. Ron Fuller, Southeastern Wrestling, back when I was a kid, was real famous for this. And a lot of times it would lead up to someone turning, and that's when you put two good guys against each other. But there was also a version they used to have where it would be good guy versus bad guy, and the first person that cheats during the match would lose the match. So if you do a punch, you automatically lost. So it was couple different versions of that, but it was you actually follow. And I remember Les Thatcher would call it the NWA rule book when they would set it up. This match is designed to follow the NWA rule book. So
I'm sorry. I'm glancing over my left shoulder a little bit. Anna Jay's on TV, so
I don't blame you. I start.
So, but yeah, it's that's one right there that you just talked about that I do not remember seeing. I've never heard of that fight.
All right, these were all warm-ups, so we're not going to be long tonight. We said we'd do about 45 minutes. This is my top 10. At number 10, match that I think would work today, lumberjack strap match. You would surround the ring with lumberjacks, and instead of throwing you back in, and this was real big in the Dallas territory, you go out to the floor and you were strapped with leather belts until you went back into the ring.
Wow.
It was brutal.
I can imagine. I mean, we were live in person when we saw Cody Rhodes get 10 straps to his back, and I can imagine how it would be in an actual match having that done to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 9, Howie, the Battle Royal. And it used to be the biggest match on the card. And I remember all these territories when they wanted to draw a big crowd, they'd have a Battle Royal. And now, of course, we do have some Battle Royals. You know, we do have kind of a form of Battle Royal with the Yeah, the Funks loved the strap match. Yes. The Funks are about to make a big appearance on my list, Joseph. Uh, but the Battle Royal, I love a good Battle Royal. Everybody on the card, if your card's 8-man deep, 10-man deep, everybody just come out and in the story, the greatest story ever. Before he was Kamala, uh, he was wrestling as kind of a fighter gimmick. In the future, Kamala, this is before he was Kamala, wins the Battle Royals. And they give him a check for like $2,500. And he goes to the bank and tries to cash the actual check. And he had went and spent all of his money on tires. And the promoter was like, I don't have that money. He goes, I won the Battle Royal. I won the $2,500. And he was just trying to, no, there's really not $2,500 for that. But I remember going to the Memorial Auditorium, and it was about every 60 days they would end the card with a Battle Royal.
Now, when you're talking battle royal, I'm assuming you're talking old school battle royal when 20 people would be in the ring at the same time.
Every wrestler in the ring, not what we see in the WWE with the 1-man enters, 2-man enters. Sound,
Right.
that was a creation of Pat Patterson, and I love it. But I'm talking about the Battle Royal. That was the biggest match in San Francisco every year. If you won the Battle Royal in the San Francisco territory, it was like winning King of the Ring or something,
Where you had 15 people going after Andre the Giant or Big John Studd in the corner, trying to get them all of them trying to get them thrown over the top to get them out. And they battled back and end up, staying in there till the end or close to the end.
Yes, Joseph. We were just telling that story that sometimes a new wrestler would actually think that cash prize was real. And it was a great sense. And sometimes it didn't. And, when I used to go to NWA Mid-America when I was a kid up in, Chattanooga and Dayton, where I grew up, they'd have a $500 Battle Royal, Howie, and there only might be 8 guys in the whole card. But at the end of the night, they did that Battle Royal. It would last 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and it'd just be full action. And it usually came down to the hottest heel versus the hottest baby face. And you can send the crowd home happy, or you can send the crowd home impressed.
Right.
Here's number 8 for you, and I missed this one a lot. And it was a specialty of the Fuller family. The Texas Tornado match, tag team match. All 4-man in the ring at one time.
Well, let's be realistic. You kind of see that in AEW right now anyway, but it's not technically called that. But yeah, I understand what you're getting at, though.
Yeah. Austin Idol wrestled in for the 5K in Atlanta and the one, and the promoter didn't have the cash. Hey, I think there's a lot of those stories, Joseph. That was, I remember one that involved Austin Idol that he somehow cashed a check on a promoter and cleared out of his count and just left town. Austin wasn't scared to take advantage of one. Howie, AEW don't follow, let's say, the Australian tag team rules, but this was a little more even past that. To me, it gave birth to the 3-way dance,
Right?
the fatal 4-way, but it was just 2 teams, all 4 of them in the ring. And that was number 8. Number 7 I had on my list was Falls Count Anywhere. There's different ways to do that, but the one I liked was they could fight all through the building, all around the crowd. But if you got the fall on the stage, it was the same as getting it in the ring. The match was over. So you could fight from one end of the building. And I always loved that as someone going to the wrestling show. You could be, I once went to a Jerry Lawler, Joe LeDuc Falls Count Anywhere match. And I remember sitting in my seat, it's probably 10, 11. And I swear Joe LeDuc was throwing punches over my head to hit Jerry Lawler right behind us. and they fought from every inch of the Memorial Auditorium all the way to the back.
Yeah, those matches are pretty cool as far as seeing some of the stuff they came up with to use against each other, and watching the crowd follow them around is kind of like having one of those little laser lights. If you got a little cat somewhere and just move it around, and the cat jumping around everywhere, that's the way the crowd would do it. I've seen some of those, especially in the indie market. You see a lot of those. I remember seeing one at the Cap Theater where it ended up going outside for a few minutes and then coming back inside.
Yeah. I remember watching one on the network, and Kevin Sullivan told the story on YouTube. Him and Blackjack fought outside, like it was a weekly town, and him and Blackjack fought outside on Saturday night the 14th, and they fought all the way out to the ocean. They were in Lakeland, Florida, or wherever, and then the next week on the 21st, they started the same house show with Kevin Sullivan and Blackjack Mulligan fighting in the same clothes in the front door the next week. And everybody knew they hadn't fought, but they gave the premiere the appearance that they'd fought the whole week.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard. I think I've heard Jim Cornette talk about that as well.
Yes, I remember that match you're talking about. Falls County Anywhere, Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler. It was a great match, and I think the Falls County Anywhere, it led to the Tupelo concession stand brawl between Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee and what were they called? The Blonde Bombers, Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham. Ferris ended up being the honky tonk man. Larry Latham ended up being one half of the Moondogs. But I remember Robert Fuller had left with his whole crowd, and they ended up tearing that man's it
was a pretzel stand, wasn't it?
Pretzel stand or whatever it was apart, concession stand. I could almost be its own match. Is that we're going to make it number 6, the concession stand brawl. So
yeah.
Okay, we're into my top 5. I needed a 6th one there anyway. So I'm just going to go with my favorite 5 matches, and we'll wrap it up tonight. Sorry Jeremy couldn't join us. Remember, we've got a couple of guests coming up. Evan Golden, the Golden Child, is going to be here on RiverCity-Media. Justin Race is going to be here on RiverCity-Media. We're going to have our boy Rocky Shaw talking about what Forever Pro's doing with their new program. But Howie, here comes my top 5. I'm going to let you. We're going to take some time with this one.
All right, go ahead. Number 5.
At number 5, the match invented by Dory Funk Sr. once went 4 hours and 30 minutes with Iron Mike DiBiase, the Texas Death Match. Very simple. You'd get the fall on your opponent. After the fall, you had 30 seconds to get back to his feet. If he could not, you were the winner of the match. Terry Funk talked to Jim Cornette on Back to the Territory series about West Texas and that territory. He said his dad would run a complete card with 6 people on it, have a preliminary match that lasted 2 minutes or 10 minutes. His Texas Death Match, Dory Funk versus Jose Lothario, they would go 3 hours. And if they got tired and cut it off in 2.5 hours, they had a standby match that was just 2 other guys that would come out and work 30 minutes. But most of the time it was 4 people running a card that was 4 hours, a Texas Death Match. Hey, if you've ever seen one, the true ones, and it's hard to find, it can go hours and hours and hours. We talk about 60 minutes. They'd go 4 hours back then.
To me, I'd be disappointed if I paid money to go to a night out of wrestling. There's just 2 matches the whole night.
Yes, I agree. That's where things have changed. We talk about how things have changed. You couldn't do that now, but you could do an hour-long Texas Death Match that would be eat up. And here's another one, probably gone for the same reason. and it would be where you could make your card super long. The 2 out of 3 falls. Harley Race was the king of it. Babyface loses, or the heel wins fall 1. Babyface loses fall 2. They go 60 minutes. Bell rings as Babyface crossbodies the champion. I don't know the last time I saw a 2 out of 3 falls match.
I don't either. I'm trying to think. They don't really do the 2 out of 3 falls anymore. They do the best of 5 series, best out of 3 or whatever, and it's one night, not all in the same night. And that's something that they ought to bring back. I think that would be something that would fly today.
All right, I'm gonna jump ahead from number 3 to number 1.
Well, no, you can't do that. A top 10, you
got
don't
to.
go from 10 to 1 or 9 to 1. Come on now.
Man, but it kind of
Hey,
just
all right. You're the president. You're the president and CEO of RiverCity-Media. You can do whatever you want to.
At number 3, the best of 7 series.
We just saw that last month on WWE on SmackDown, I think it was.
I thought it was on NXT.
They could have had one on NXT, but they had one on SmackDown as well. It was Andrade against shoot, I can't remember who it was.
One I always go back to is Magnum TA Nikita Koloff. That's the best of 7 match I've ever seen. I also remember one in Mid-Atlantic that was Wahoo McDaniels and somebody, maybe Greg Valentine, that went the best of 7. And they're just, to me, you could sell such a great story in the best of 7 because you could just, the storyline in the Magnum Nikita Koloff is Nikita got out to like a 3 match lead, and then Magnum was just chipping away at it. You just saw in New Japan a best of 3 over 3 years between Kenny Omega and that's who it was. Slaughter and Backlund had a great one. I'm glad you said that, Joseph. But I love those.
I appreciate you putting that up there, but you need to go back 2, 3 comments that the Rabid Beaver put on there. Dyslexia counting. If anybody can do that, Randy Cunningham can do that.
With the best. I only got 2 more, Howie Chaney.
Go ahead, buddy. Number 2.
I Quit.
Oh, yeah.
Best one, Magnum TA, Tully Blanchard, I Quit match. I also remember one where you'd get the heel, you'd have somebody play it over the speaker, and the babyface would never I Quit, but you would think they quit. And Tully Blanchard did that also. So, I Quit match.
I've heard of the match, but I've never heard anybody doing what you just
said.
Yeah,
that was one of the classics. And the last one from the Randall Cunningham Dyslexic top 5 that includes about 67 matches. And that's what we do every week when I do a top 5. So we had 6. We had my sweet pads, what Joseph said a minute ago. Number 1, what I think needs to return, empty arena matches. God, Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk was so good. That, Howie, that may be my favorite match of all time. Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk, empty arena. And, we've had them over time, and they've been different associations that's done them. I remember one in Atlanta they did because somebody couldn't travel or they had to do it. They were in town. They wanted to get 2 weeks of video. And they did an empty arena match after they did another match. But and Funk, I think the situation with Funk was he couldn't come back for that one. Sting and Angle was one of the best in TNA. Yeah, it was a great one. But I love empty arena matches. Do you remember the one that he's talking about or the one I'm talking about, Funk and Lawler?
I think I remember the one with Sting and Angle in TNA.
So
I think I remember that. So TNA's had a lot of great matches as well. That's one company that's don't get the credit they deserve.
well, since Mr. Rabbit Beaver has been on here with us, Joseph Hughes, Wrestle Talk, I got to give him credit for when I left off my list that I think should have been in the top 5. The X Division Championship match. Uh, that is, yeah, Lawler and Tony Atlas. Joseph brought that up, and after he brought it up, I was sitting there thinking, how many great X Division matches did TNA have out of that X? I mean, I remember the first time I saw it, the whole visual of the big X above the ring in a 6-sided ring. It was something I'd never seen before, Howie.
Yeah, you're right. And those little guys could get up there and use that to their advantage as well.
Yeah.
I've seen them, kind of um, pull themselves across and drop down and do things like that by using that as well. Oh, how many stars did it make? Oh my gosh, it made more stars than it's in the heavens right now, man.
Hey, it made Uncle Dave make about a few stars too. I think he gave the X Divisions a 6.5. So.
Oh yeah, the one thing back in the day that WWE used to do was a steel cage match. I mean, they still do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm so thankful they got rid of that big blue cage that they used to have their cage matches in.
Yeah, you know what that big blue cage became? The Pojami death match. If you look inside
Right.
of it, the big blue cage is inside of the wooden structure of the Pajami death match. We really didn't have a guest this week, but we're kind of. And Jeremy was supposed to be here with his 5, but he had to take care of some business. But we love that format. We're going to bring back the best of 5. Kind of let me and Jeremy debate it off.
Yeah,
Should
absolutely.
have just brought Joseph on when found out Jeremy couldn't make it.
Yep, should have. Joseph, be ready in the bullpen next time, buddy.
Yeah, we'll bring you out pitching.
But I like Joseph. He's a great guy, but I feel underdressed when he comes on with him with his tie on and everything.
Hey, the Rabbit Beaver will make you feel bad about you as a human. Look at me. I look like I've rejected Mick Foley here. He'll show up hot on you with his tie.
No, you're more of you're a cousin to the Briscoes.
Well, I ain't got no teeth. I won't pop my teeth out. So, Joseph, he said he could show up casual, but I think that's part of the gimmick, Joseph. If you show up with the tie here on River City, we definitely want to see the tie.
Yeah, if you show up casual, that'd be like Jim Cornette or not showing up with a racket, or Paulie Dangerously not showing up with a telephone.
I'm telling you.
So, but
again, Howie, there's so many of these matches I'd just like to see again. One time. I'd love to see Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes in a Texas death match and let them go an hour and let them create and tell a story. I miss it so much.
Yeah, let them go Broadway.
Yes, absolutely. Here he goes. I can wear the tie with my Golden Child shirt.
Yeah, it's just like right now. I just saw a superplex off the top rope, of course. And back in the day, that was a finisher. Now they're back up doing more moves like 5 seconds later.
Nope, got out Barry Windham superplex.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we've kind of discussed it one time before, but that's something else we need to come back. You top 5 finishers of all time.
Yeah, we've done that once before, and I feel that was one of the few shows I ever got off of here and said, "Boy, I gaffed that," because I remember everything Jeremy said, I was like, oh, I can't believe I left that off the list. Oh, I can't believe I left that off the list. Oh, I can't believe I left that off the list.
Yeah.
So, but
Absolutely.
again, we'll have JJ back on next week. Have a guest this week. We were planning on just going old school with this show, but here is really old school for Jeremy joined in season 1. It's just me and you in here talking wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have never thought that it would have took off like this when I mentioned bringing Jeremy on and doing a wrestling show with you and him, because I remember I remember sitting in the office at work talking to you on the phone. I'm like, hey, I got an idea. I said, I got a buddy of mine, Jeremy Johnson. I know him. We go to the ball game. We're sat beside each other at ball games. We talk about wrestling. I said, y'all two knows more about wrestling than any other two guys I know. I said, let's get together and see about doing a show. And then here we are, what, 2 years later, and still going strong.
Yeah. And, River City Media, wrestling become an offshoot at River City Media. I never intended to have wrestling on here, but it's kind of became, it's kind of what we do when it ain't football season now, and people love it. With wrestling, it's so much more. I remember when I was about 12 and I loved wrestling. Like when I was 16 and I loved wrestling. And I would go buy the magazine because that's the only way you found out about the WWF or AWA. And you had to look around to see who was working the counter because the wrong person there was going to make fun of you. I wished I knew now what I knew then because I'd just punch them and go on. But it was so underground at one point that now when we do these shows, and like the one we did with Joseph, or the one we did with Forever Pro that gets 3,000 or 4,000 views, there's a lot of people loves wrestling nowadays. I'm telling you, the guy that we've got coming on here that Joseph has introduced me to, if Evan Golden isn't Buddy Landale reincarnated, I don't know that they ever will be one. So there's so much talent. Some of those guys in Forever Pro we've got to work with: Jamison Shook, Chris Conk, Kevin Ryan, and this is I think the world of Kevin Ryan, but Kevin Ryan inside of a ring is amazing. Cabana Man Dan, if this up in Knoxville, this is the rivalry we'd like to see: Evan Golden versus KC Kazana. If you like old school wrestling, go see indie wrestling. It's the closest thing. New South, it's the closest thing. If Eric Bischoff was running the NBA still in 1994 and saw Cabana Man Dan, he'd be on every TV show the NWA had. I reached out to Big Andy Toomer, the world's largest orangutan. 405 pounds of graveyard romping, tomping destruction. Chris Kronk. How could you be better in the ring than Chris Kronk? Or Jamison Shook. From bell to bell, Jamison Shook is as good as it gets. Go out and see some of these Indian wrestlers. They're phenomenal. And a new one, the newest one I've been, CMD. We've got to get out and see CMD in person. Joseph raves about him. So go see some indie wrestling. We need to get the Forever Pro show. We need to get some New South shows. Hey, we got to go see our boy Ty Rose, who is now a pro wrestler. Hey, and he got a jacket that says his dad wore in the 70s, Pat Rhodes Honky Tonkin' Tour. Now we got Ty Rose's Honky Tonkin' Tour.
Yeah, Randy, I was right there with you, man. I remember going on Saturday mornings, going to the supermarket with my mom, and I didn't want to have to walk with her the whole time. So I'd go to the magazine stand, catch up on the wrestling. PWI, get the PWI out and look at the top 10 wrestlers of each month and get the different ones. Because, I mean, there's nearly one whole shelf just full of wrestling magazines. It wasn't just one. There was quite a few of them on there.
And it's not the same now. I picked up one the other day, but that PWI that they released that had Jameson Shook in it, had Cabana Dan Man in it, Cabana Man Dan. You can still find quality wrestling that is, you know, here. It's not, we are one of the last bastions. We love AEW, we love WWE. I love to tune Jeremy up and tell him how bad the WWE is, but TWE here, I mean, within 5 miles of my house, been running 10 years. A lot of good promotions out there.
Absolutely. A lot of good wrestlers. So, Randy, it's a good show. Well, we're going to get off here. Hopefully, Jeremy can join us next week. Rabbit Beaver, thanks for joining us and all the comments you helped us out with tonight, man. And
We should have just had Joseph on when we found out JJ couldn't be here. But I'm going to get the date set. Watch River City Media. We've got 2 shows I know coming up. I've got to get a date on Justin Race, which is Harley's son. And I sent him an email right before we got on, Evan Golden, the Golden Child. And we know Cabana Man Dan's been traveling, and we're going to try to get Dump Sanders on here as soon as I can get in touch with Cabana Man. I look forward to having Dump. He's really a good story, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw him wrestle quite a few times, and he's no small individual either. In case you hadn't saw him, he's a hefty guy, or he was. Cabana Man Dan said he's lost some weight, so but he's still pretty good size.
Is he the world's largest orangutan, though?
Oh no.
Okay, then
there's
nobody can be. You ain't Big Andy. You ain't it. No. Dump's a big guy. Hey, take us out of here, Howie Chaney. I'm ready to go to bed.
Absolutely. For Randy Cunningham, I'm the Howie Chaney. This is still real to me, and see you next week one day. I'm not sure which day, but we'll see you one day next week. Good night. God bless everybody.